Alright guys, what's up? So I just wanted to make a quick video and show you guys the shell that I got. So the shell that I got, I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. First, this is going to be kind of like a two-part video. I want to show you guys some parts that I've gotten so far for the vitara build for next year. Just a couple things I needed to upgrade, fix, that sort of thing. And I want to talk a little bit more about the plans with that, because as of right now I wanted to get CSS done to it, but I know that I can make 500 on the stock block with hopefully without cracking a sleeve. A lot of people have made 500 without cracking a stock sleeve, whether they use the block guard or not. I don't really think that's something that's going to make a difference. If anything, I think a block guard is going to make it crack quicker, but I don't know. People have different opinions. Some people say a block guard is better than nothing. Some people say it oblongs the cylinders. Personally, I haven't used one, so personally I don't have an opinion on it. But with the rest of the money that's into the engine, I would either just go with CSS or full mid sleeves, like full dart and mid sleeves, like, or wet sleeves, whatever you want to call them. But yeah, so at this point, I've got to see exactly how much money I'm gonna end up having, because I want to have the car ready to go out to like the first races right at the beginning of the year, and I still need to get a quite expensive clutch for it. So even with all the parts I have and the clutch and the machine work I'm gonna have to do to get the head done and the new valve springs that I'm gonna be getting, so I'll probably get I'll either go with like SuperTech valve springs, or I'll go with possibly Skunk 2 valve springs. Not likely that that's going to happen. Probably going to go with Fiera valve springs or SuperTech, and same with the retainers. Either one is, they're both good. I just haven't decided what one I want to go with yet and what one's the cheapest. I got to look a little more into it. But yeah, so as far as the D series, 100% for sure what's going to happen is I'm going to go out to the shop soon, and I'm going to get the race car into the shop once I finish a little bit of bodywork that's left on the Taggy, my buddy's Taggy, which you guys will see when we go to the shop, which I've been like delaying really bad, and I want to get out there. I have been trying to make videos regularly though, at least. Not promising that it's going to continue, but I'm going to keep trying. So anyway, I want to get it to the shop. I want to get the engine pulled completely out of the race car for now, and get it here, and I want to get the head off of it to start with. I want to get the head all ported. I want to get new OEM valves, and then once I get the head all ported and get the new OEM valves, I want to take it to the machine shop, same one that I took my GSR head to, and I'm going to get it resurfaced and a 3-angle valve job on it, and hopefully it doesn't need new valve seats or anything. Hopefully it can just be I can get a 3-angle valve job done, which I think stock they come with 3-angle valve jobs anyway, so it should be just basically just a regrind kind of thing. I just with brand new OEM valves, I want a 3-angle valve job. I don't want to just grind the valves or whatever, even if they already have a 3-angle valve job on them. Anyway, regardless of that, I gotta look at a little more into that. I'm gonna do new OEM valves, port the head out, and you'll see some of the parts here in a minute. I'm going to run the stock cam for the beginning of the year, mainly because I want to max that turbo out and see if I can make upwards of, like, if I can push anything over 400 on this turbo with the stock cam, I'll be super happy, and then I'll upgrade the cam and keep this turbo for this year and run it. As far as the bottom end, I don't know if I'm going to have the money to get it CSS this year, or if I'm just going to put new bearings in, and run everything else the same. I'm still deciding on that 100%. The nice thing about putting new bearings in, you don't even have to take the pistons out. You can literally just pop the crank out, pop some new bearings in, clean everything out, put it back together, make sure there's no metal shavings anywhere. Obviously it's a good idea to pop the pistons out anyway, but you can pop them back in. You don't really need to buy new piston rings unless you notice that there's excessive wear or something, but I don't think that'll be an issue at all yet. I went with the cheaper bearings this year, and I think it would be a good idea just to refresh the bearings and put a set of race bearings in there with the horsepower I'm looking to make and how high I'm looking to rev it. I really don't feel like spinning a bearing, and I always watch my oil pressure, and it was kind of getting a little iffy at the end of the year, and I wasn't sure if it was the oil or if the bearings. So anyway, yeah, first thing I'm going to do, pull the head, get it ported, resurface, 3-angle valve job, redo the valve stem seals in it, and like I said, I'm going to use the stock cam for now. I'm going to keep the Y8 intake for now. I'm going to possibly look into getting a little bit of a bigger and better throttle body. I'm not really too concerned. Like, I got the port match throttle body and the port match white intake, so if anything I might just if I decide to open up the head ports bigger than just port matching, which I don't really plan on it, because with the Z6 head you can do most of the work. You can port match, and then you can do most of the rest of the work inside of the runners themselves, and the valves bowls, the valve bowls, sorry. So basically that's it for that. Now I'll show you guys the parts, and yeah, like I said, I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing with the bottom end in the D series, but it'll definitely be back out this year coming up, and I'll have a solid clutch. I'll have everything else tidied up. The only thing I'll have to worry about is possibly cracking the block if I end up pushing too much power. But we'll see where that goes. And I still might get it CSS, I still might get sleeves. I'm not 100% sure yet. I just gotta see what happens with the money and stuff. And I also got the b20 VTEC going on, and this shell, which needs a few things for the shell itself, and then obviously I gotta finish the b20 VTEC. So yeah, but I'll show you guys some parts that I've got for the Vitara build so far, and I'll kind of just go over what else I need. I guess all that I guess I'll just tell you guys now. Other than what's here, all I really need is the valve springs and the retainers. That's all I can really think of other than what's here. Oh, and the new bearings, some race bearings. But yeah, so for yes, I know, sorry about the focus, but for the parts, I ended up actually picking up. This is a Skunk 2 tuner series cam gear, so this will be great because it's a little bit lighter, and I'm pretty sure it's a Z6 cam gear. By the way that this lines up with the hole up there, it's actually set 2 degrees advanced right now, but regardless whether it's a Z6 or a Y8 for example, it doesn't matter, because if it's a Y8 I can I believe it's advance the timing. Or no, sorry, if it's a Y8 cam gear I would have to retard at 4.5 degrees on here, and if it's a Z6 cam gear and you're using it on a Y8, you'd have to advance it 4.5 degrees. Still leaves you 5.5 degrees to play with, advanced and retarded, so that's no big deal. I got that for a pretty sick deal, so I'm happy with that. That's kind of what I was getting to earlier, where I'm saying I'm still using the stock cam, but I'm gonna push it and see how far I can do, or see how far I can go with it. I know if I advance it a bit, I could probably make a little more top end, and if I retard it a bit I can make a little more low end, but I won't know for sure until I try it. So yeah, I got a new jumper harness. This is like a mid-range, a medium price one from eBay. It's K-Moon. I will put a link in the description if they still have these available, which I believe they do. And then obviously energy suspension, I'll put a link in the description for these. I got these ones off of Amazon. This is shifter bushings for my shifter linkages, because I need those badly. So that'll take care of the rest of the shifting problems. I've got my ARP head studs, which I'm finally getting ARP head studs and putting them on. They're just stock E-Series ones, recommended by ARP to torque to 65 foot-pounds, I believe, with their assembly lube. I gotta double check. I don't think it's 60. I think it's 65, but the paper's inside anyway. Here I have a 3-bar GM map sensor, and this is a fairly expensive one. It's not like it's not a super expensive one. It's not a $100 one, but it's mid-range, I'd say. So I don't think I'll have any issues with it working. I've seen Hunter Tuned and other guys on YouTube use $10, $20 3-bar GM map sensors, and they work fine. So if I have an issue with this, I'll be kind of disappointed. But we might end up needing to upgrade to a 4-bar later on anyway. In here, I'm not even going to bother taking out, but there's a new oil feed line, which I need because mine was leaking. If I mentioned that before, I'm not 100% sure if I did. Here we have the stuff to make my P06 ECU VTEC once I get back from my buddy. So those are all the capacitors I need to do that. Yeah, that's pretty much it for parts, guys. Like I said, it's pretty much just valve springs, retainers that I'm going to need, the new race bearings, and then it's just a matter of whether I'm doing CSS or not. If I'm doing CSS, or if I'm doing something with the block to strengthen it and to be able to handle over 600 horsepower or up to 600 horsepower, which personally I would like to push 7, like mid 7s is my goal. I would be super stoked to get there one day. But I think for that we're going to need a little bit more than CSS, maybe some dry sleeves with CSS, or like I said, the dart and mid sleeves, and then just no CSS at all. That would definitely be good for 700, mid 700s, at least from what I've seen. So yeah, if I do CSS it, or if I do go that route and do sleeves, I will have to end up upgrading the pistons. More than likely, I will have to end up upgrading the pistons to like a forged piston, not a cast aftermarket piston. So CP, I'd probably go with CP pistons, maybe Wiseco's. Regardless, all those pistons should have no problem handling 600-700 horsepower. You just have to, I'd have to look up the specs and stuff, of course. But yeah, so if I do that, then I'll have to get new pistons as well. So realistically, I've got most of the stuff I need. It's not too bad. The most expensive thing that I need to get out of the way is the clutch. I would like to go with a, not 100% sure, either a competition twin disc or a competition stage 5. Depending, I don't really want to go with the stage 5 because I know it's only rated for 500 horsepower, and if I end up pushing over that, I don't want to spend $500 on a clutch and then have it start slipping. So really looking into the twin disc, but I want to see if there's a cheaper option out there. If you guys know of any, you can put them in the comments. I have heard of a few. I know there's I know Clutch Masters, they're not cheaper, but I know they're on par with competition. So I mean, I can't, like I said, at the moment remember what the cheaper twin disc was that I was looking at, but we will find a good clutch that's that we won't have to worry about changing for a while, and possibly a lightweight flywheel. Not too sure about that yet, not really. Alright guys, so I'm not 100% sure what happened there. There we go. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure what happened there, but I was on the topic of the lightweight flywheel, and the only way I'd really go with one of those if it was a good one that's a good reputable company. I wouldn't buy a cheap one off of like eBay, like say like an XTD, like the clutch I used last year. I wouldn't buy a lightweight flywheel like that and use it. I might trust the Yonaka, I'm not too sure. I'd have to read into those ones a bit more. I do trust their clutches. If you're making under 400, they seem to be a pretty good clutch for $200 for a stage 4. But yeah, so we'll see you guys in the morning when I show you the shell. It's a 2-door and it's a coupe, and it's the same year as my race car. So if you know the year of my race car, then you know that, but you'll see the color and stuff in the morning if you haven't already figured out what the color is, which I don't think I said it in the last video. So yeah, I'm going to bed, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you in the morning. Hey guys, what's up? So just take you guys to show you the shell quick, if I can open this door. Alright, I'm gonna sit in here for a sec, but this is the interior of it. It's got a big old RPM gauge like every racer Honda should. But the guy I bought this off of is actually a buddy of mine, and it used to be, I gotta give this back to him, this is still his, but it used to be a V16 swap in it, and it's a 2-door coupe. The inside's super clean, like the floor, everything. I got the seats back there. I took them out because I had to take the fuel pump out for his car, but I'll show you guys the outside quick, and then that's pretty much it. It's got, I don't know, it's got a little bit of rust on the bottom back quarter, but nothing serious. Underneath is in really good shape, the floors and stuff. So you guys can kind of see it's in pretty good shape. The little spot right there needs to be fixed. Don't know what happened. Definitely needs new tint because the tint's peeling. But other than that, the side underneath the fender was in really good shape. I just sanded it down, repainted it. And the engine bay, I just kind of washed it quick with soap and water. There's slightest bit of rust here and there in the engine bay, but overall it's pretty good. I want to pull the subframe out and paint that before I do anything. Now, remembering that this is for the B20, so I want to tuck the engine bay and stuff kind of like my race car, but maybe not quite as much. It's got ABS. I got to figure out if I'm going to delete that or keep that. The only other thing is it's got a brand new windshield, but the roof has a couple dents that need to be pulled out of it from when the hood flew up in the 401. And this side is a little bit rustier, and underneath, I'll show you, it needs to be patched a little bit underneath. Right there, you can't really see it, but there's a hole that needs to be patched. But overall, the back quarters and stuff are in really good shape. Like I said, there's a tiny spot of rust on the other side, but that's about it. Alright guys, so it's friggin' freezing out here. I'm going back in the shed and then we'll talk. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I also got the fender here. Still needs to be clear coated, which is why it's looks a little bit off from that one. And I think also the can of matching paint I got might have just had a little more purple in it than I wanted, but I'm not really too worried about it. I gotta fix up this one a little bit more. I think once it's clear coated it'll look pretty close and should match decent, but it had a lot of dents in it and stuff. And it looks pretty good now. You can still see at the top there one little spot. I just gotta sand that down a bit and repaint it, and it should get rid of it. It's just because I didn't use fiberglass Bondo. I didn't have any actual like body fill left, which is what I should have finished it with before I primed and painted it. Just because the fiberglass Bondo was like very smooth. It's almost like glass when it's sanded down, so it kind of, the paint doesn't, it's a little smoother where that spot is, so that's why the shade looks kind of different and stuff. So anyway, it's not actually like there's no low spots and stuff, it's just the shade's a bit different because of the Bondo. That's all. So I'll sand that down a bit and repaint it, and that should fix the issue. But yeah, I just want to show you guys the shell. And I guess quickly I'll talk about the cranks a bit, because I had someone mention about using a Y7 crank and what his build was. Now this winter I think I've obviously already mentioned I'm doing the head and stuff, but I'm using OEM valves in my head mainly because that's what I've been told by millions of people, just to stick with OEM valves. And you won't have any issues dropping a valve kind of thing. Not that the other valves that you can buy are bad, it's just a lot of guys that have proven high power and stuff just use OEM valves. Not that you can't make high horsepower on bigger valves, but I don't know, I've already been using OEM valves and I know they're reliable, so a new set of them is just going to be even more reliable. So that's why I'm sticking with OEM valves anyway. But back to the cranks. The Z6 crank is what I currently have in my car with the dual oil passages, and it's not so much the dual oil passage that makes, well, I mean it makes quite a big difference, but the oil passages are actually chamfered or I don't know how to say the word properly, but they basically, instead of like the Y7 and Y8 where there's no like beveled edge around the actual oil oil passageway, where on the Z6 there is, so it just helps get oil in there better and quicker and smoother kind of thing. So that makes a huge difference too, along with it being dual drilled, even though some people say that single drilled oil cranks are actually better. They're not better if they're not chamfered right, or whatever the word is. So I don't know, Z6 crank is good. I do have a buddy that's ran a Y8 crank, and if you run the right oil and you shim your oil pump, you shouldn't have an issue with it. He didn't. He always had good oil pressure. Just install an oil pressure gauge, keep an eye on everything. If you notice that your oil pressure gets low or something's going on, then you'll probably have to tear down the bottom end, check the bearings and the oil pump, see what went wrong. But yeah, at least with an oil pressure gauge, you can kind of hopefully save it before it gets too bad. Something were to happen. Now, like I don't know if I mentioned in any of the videos before, but I spun when I first started making videos, I had the Mini-Me and I spun all the bearings, and I'm guessing it was an oil pump failure. I didn't have an oil pressure gauge at the time. Wasn't really too worried about it. It was a 15-second all-motor D-series, so I wasn't too concerned about an oil pressure gauge, but sorry guys, I'm fucking sick. But yeah, I wasn't too worried about an oil pressure gauge, but when I took that engine apart, it spun all the mains and I think 1 or 2 rods, so that tells me it was probably an oil pump failure, because it had oil, I just did an oil change. The only thing I can think is the oil pump went and it had no pressure, because it spun all the mains, and then usually if you spin a rod bearing, that's one thing, you know, if you're revving it high or whatever, but when you spin all the mains like that, it's starved for oil. Like, you could tell it was starved for oil. So yeah, basically oil pump's a big thing with the Hondas. Oil pump in the right oil for boost. Make sure you get a good oil filter, not a crappy one. Everyone has their own opinion on those, but you know what I mean. So just stick with something that's good, that you know is going to work. I've used cheap ones on my builds and haven't had an issue, but that's usually only when I'm going to be doing an oil change within 100 kilometers, like when I was breaking in, sort of thing. But right now I'm actually running a Napa Gold filter. That's probably what I'll continue to run. And I've been switching my oil up a bit, but I'm going to be running 10W50 synthetic here soon. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to talk about the cranks, show you guys the shell, and yeah, so have a good one, and subscribe, like, and leave a comment if you need to know anything.